Welcome back to the Titanium Hangar. This is Mike. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope everybody is doing well. Today, I want to talk about non-transforming Transformers, and are they considered Transformers? Do you consider non-transforming Transformers Transformers? Well, I did put up a poll. We're going to talk about that, but last week we talked about 3-0. I specifically avoided this conversation, this topic last week, because I knew I was going to talk about it this week, and so we're going to go into a few other companies, several other companies making non-transforming Transformers this week. And then we're going to discuss, is there a place for those in your Masterpiece collection? And of course, we're going to talk about the poll results. This and more coming up. Okay, so getting into this, I want to start with a poll. I want to say thank you to everybody who voted on this poll at short notice. It is pretty short notice on this poll. I should have put it up days earlier, a week ago, or something like that. But I want to say this looks like a 70-30. The first few hours it was like 65-35, but about 70-30 is where it's approaching. And the whole point of this is about 70% of viewers that collect Transformers don't want to collect non-transforming Transformers. That's what I'm getting out of this data. There's a lot of great comments, a lot of funny comments in there too. So there's a company called Flame Toys that makes non-transforming Transformers, and they're very stylized, but you know, they're stylized in a close to G1-esque. A lot of people do say IDW, but there's a lot of G1-ish stuff going on there with the Flame Toy stuff. And I have to say that I like the look of some of them. Some of them are quite intriguing overall. I think they started out making this Drift, either Drift or one of the other ones. I never bought any of these. I just kind of talked about them, but this one was $350, maybe more depending on where you buy it. And they're highly detailed. They have a lot of articulation with them, and this is an 8-inch figure that costs $350, and it has 6 built-in LEDs, a cape with built-in wires, and link articulation gimmicks, and superposable with die-cast parts, and for solidity and heaviness. And so with that, they pretty much carried on this for the more expensive figures. They also made a Star Saber. Now their Star Saber is $450. It's still in stock at places. And so with that, it comes with interchangeable heads, small swords, 2 small swords, a big sword, a shield, 2 small busters, and 5 pairs of interchangeable hands, and a lot of stuff. But what really turned me off the Flames Toys and their non-transforming stuff was kind of the stylization, but the fact that they were so expensive, and then they started introducing a lower price point. So this Soundwave one here is a model kit, I believe. It's a model kit. It's $70, and with that, they're going into a whole new market, and they're scaling them down to a lower price point. I still think they should scale size-wise and scale-wise about the same, because this is going to be a 6.3-inch non-transforming action figure. This is their Devastator that stands 7.09 inches, so a little over 7 inches. Pre-colored plastic, but assembly required. $85 sold out. So that's where we start to get into one of these. One of the points I want to make about these non-transforming Transformers is that they sell out very well. Whether or not it's the model kits or it's the higher end ones, they sell very well. Maybe because it's something different. Maybe it's because they are produced in lower quantities than transforming Transformers, but they look pretty good. Now, I'm not 100% sure what the size of this Jazz is, but I'm starting to notice a little bit more G1-esque, a little bit less stylization to them, although yes, this is very stylized, but I'm starting to notice the direction they're going with this. Now, this is their larger, more expensive one at $308 for their Jazz. They also dabble in the Beast Wars territory, so the one on the right, the Leo Prime, is $95, and then the Optimus is, if it's the same one I see listed on here, it should be $190, something along those lines. But anyway, there's the price point for these, and they truly aren't exactly Masterpiece. But that gets me into the next point with this company. They make an RC model kit that comes in June that looks less and less stylized, even though it does have a stylized look, more G1-esque than any of their figures. And I have a feeling they're doing this for a very specific reason. Now, I don't know the size or scale, but a lot of them fall in that 6-inch range. And if she's still around 6-inch range, she could work as a Masterpiece one. And we're going to come back and revisit her. We're going to come back and revisit RC after we talk about a few other companies. Now, I would say under any other circumstance, if you come across blue lobsters, that you'd want to stay away from them. But in this case, I did pick this guy up. Now, this was their Autobot Spike, and I think they called it X Frank, and which is kind of funny because you've got Autobot Spike, Autobot X, X Frank, and then X Transbots is making theirs, and we'll talk about that one when that one comes up. So anyway, this one doesn't look bad. He's non-transforming. He really just feels like a movable PVC figure and all of that. And so with that, I think he fills the gap nicely, but he's nowhere near Masterpiece level of paint and quality and engineering and articulation and all that kind of stuff. So for a $40 option, it wasn't bad. For $40, it's not a bad option because he scales well with everything, but X Transbots is going to put out one that is going to probably put this one to shame. X Transbots is coming out with theirs called Frankenstein, the MX-21. It is $127, and then this one will be 8.66 inches tall, have replacement face, a gun, 2 shooting effect parts, finger shooting effect, rescuing long arm, 2 feet booster effects, and then biocard instructions, and it's due out in September of 2022. It's due out, and I need a time machine so I can go back and buy it. No, it's just not out yet. So the thing about this one is that it doesn't transform, and it looks pretty good. It's going to have a lot of effects and all that kind of stuff, but for the people in the they wanted to transform camp, I think that it would be possible to make this character transform. And here's why. Because all of these parts are just parts taken off of other bots, and it's proportional enough that you could turn this into some hideous looking jalopy. That it would be possible. It would be possible. And in fact, you wouldn't even need to worry about having perfection in the transformation. It could be a simplistic transformation and let it look kind of rough. But anyway, the fact that it doesn't transform doesn't really bother me, and this is a character that a lot of people don't expect to transform, but it would be fun to see what it would turn into, right? Now, the other character that I would like to see, and I don't care if he transforms, of course, is Alpha Trion. Now, he never transformed in the show, so there's really no need for him to transform, but the thing about Alpha Trion is the fact that this looks good. This is Like Toys version, and I would say from everything I've seen, looks like the best version. And so it's 3D printed, and the plans that I'm hearing from Like Toys is that once they get their Metroplex out, or their Davis out, then all of these other figures that they're going to do full-on production runs with them instead of 3D printed. Now, that was the plan, and of course we haven't seen that come through yet, but with the resin printing and all that, I really hear a lot of good things about their kits, and I've heard great things about this figure. Now, another company made a really good Alpha Trion, and it was the EXTF01 X Gokin, Gohkin, and that one is a good looking figure from back in the day, but it's more of a chug scale. This is so old that this is when companies would come out and make chug figures. Make figures that scale with what Hasbro's making at retail, and this thing was about 6 inches tall. And with it, though, it was one of those things that people were paying like $300 for this on the secondary market just to get one. I think the price has fallen now that there's more options out there, but it's not big enough. It's definitely not big enough to scale with Masterpiece, which was a problem and a reason I wasn't willing to commit that much money to that thing. And I do want to point something else out. So Hasbro made a transforming Alpha Trion. Now, of course, they used the Scourge mold, which I believe is a good idea. It was a really good reuse. I'm very happy with the figure overall. But looking at them side by side, even the Chug version of a 10-year-old mold, or it may be older than that, who knows, or 8-year-old, I don't remember the date on this. But I still think the non-transforming one looks better than what Hasbro did. As good as the one Hasbro made looks, it still doesn't hold a candle to a non-transforming version. So with that, at least Hasbro's looks better than what they did in the past. Yeah, some of the past versions of Alpha Trion from Hasbro, since we haven't had a variety of them from any other company, so you got to look at what they've done in the past at Hasbro. But some of these just can't be unseen, especially if you own them. Okay, so getting back to the Fembots, and starting with this Windblade. Now, this Windblade is an IDW Windblade made by Fury Model Toys. So this Flame Toys version on the right is the non-transforming version. On the left, you have Bingo Toys, which is a transforming version. Now, I think they're both available on the market right now, so you could go get both of them at Show Z right now if you wanted to. So the transforming one for Bingo Toys is $90, and then the non-transforming model kit you have to assemble, it's actually a reissue, but it's $67. And so, side by side, which one do you like the aesthetic of the most, and is it really worth it for one to transform versus the other one? When it comes to these Finbots, though, and the reason I point that out is because this is where we see more of a better representation from non-transforming figures when it comes to the female form, because of the transformation and the transformation into an alt mode that's going to require kibble and all of that kind of stuff, but you can actually match the animation or the comic and all of that kind of stuff, the illustration, much better with a non-transforming one. I also want to point out that the Bingo Toys is about 2 inches taller, according to what I'm seeing here, 7.87 inches versus 6.1 inches for the Flame Toys. Now getting back to RC, the ultimate of all of the Fembots, you know, the Fembot that everybody wants, right? You've got to have an RC in your collection. But looking at all of them, I don't think any of them truly nail the aesthetic. There are some that do some things better than others, some that are really close, but none of them truly nail the RC aesthetic, match the cartoon, they don't match the animation, and with that, that opens a gate to non-transforming RCs winning. Oddly enough, this stylized take that we are seeing from the Flame... Was it Flame Toys? Yes, Flame Toys. And they're not going for Super G1 or Hyper G1-esque type of a look, but it's starting to look even closer than any of the transformable options, simply because they can match the aesthetic closer if they wanted to. Now, I would love to see this with more smoothed out lines and not all of that detail and looking more G1, and that would win in that department. But still, it looks really good, really close, but it might be a little short. It's not out yet, and it doesn't have the size, the height in here, due out in June of 2023, but seems like a pretty exciting candidate to be the best RC that's out there for your Masterpiece shelf. So I've shared where you guys stand with this whole debate, and I'm going to tell you what I think, and I'm going to also tell you why I believe 70% of the people would rather have their Transformers transform. And the reason is because they want to have a figure on the shelf, but know if they want to transform it, they can transform. There's a lot of issues, and I made videos about that. When you transform figures, you could break them, you could scratch the paint, you could truthfully affect your figure by transforming and flipping around, plus the time that it takes to do that. But buying a figure, knowing if you wanted to spend a half an hour to take it from one mode to the other carefully without breaking it, then you could, although most people won't. And as I pointed out, I personally want Masterpiece Transformers that transform, but I would like to pepper in characters that don't need to transform as non-transforming action figures and have a nice combination on your shelf, or even an option to swap out an RC that doesn't transform but looks perfect. And from all the information that I can dig up on this RoboSyn Bumblebee, RoboSyn is not going to have this guy transform, which is their claim to fame, transforming Optimus Prime, and now they've got a non-transforming Transformer. Is he a Transformer if he just walks around and talks? Is he? Well, RoboSyn is making this one not transform from all the information that I've found. Feel free to let me know in the comments below where you're at on this. Have you picked up any of these non-transforming Transformers? Are you excited about them? Are you disappointed in them? If you picked them up and are disappointed, let me know. If you picked them up and you love them more than a counterpart that transforms, let me know. It'd be fun to hear all of those comments and hear the feedback. And again, I appreciate everybody that was in the poll. Let me know your comments, like and subscribe, and talk to your hanger out.